and gentlemen, please welcome.
And we are live once again every Tuesday at 8. It's time for another exciting edition of the MCW Cast. I've returned MCW legacy announcer Larry Legend.
Glad to have you back, Larry. I'm Tara.
And I am Deacon Storm.
That's right, joining us again.
Yeah, I just didn't want to step on anyone. That's why there was like that weird 1 second of awkward silence.
There is no stepping of anyone's microphone in the MCW Cast studio, my friend.
Hey.
And I heard last week you guys had a great guest to join us right here in the studio.
Yeah, we had Dante Caballero, former MCW heavyweight champion, former MCW race television champion, former MCW tag team champion, currently a part of or working with Ring of Honor. Just saw him on TV this past week, so yeah.
Yeah, and he'll be returning to MCW, of course. We are just 1 week away from our return to live events on July 24th, right here in Joppa, Maryland. What was that, Brian?
I'll say I'm so excited.
I can tell you're just exuding enthusiasm.
Very.
Now, there we go. We got excited eyes.
You're beaming.
So if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, make sure you go to mcwprowrestling.com or to our ticket outlet locally at Hideaway Collectibles on Holabird Avenue in Dundalk, Maryland. You can stop there. Their hours are posted on their website and their Facebook page, but not only do they have the biggest selection of collectibles, including lots of hard-to-find Funko Pops, merchandise, wrestling merchandise, memorabilia, autographs, but they are also an authorized MCW ticket outlet. There we go.
Boy, that was a mouthful.
That was.
And you got it all out in one breath. Impressive.
All right.
Letting those ring announcing skills come right here to the forefront, right here on the MCW Cast. And just a reminder, as always, we want you to like, join in on the conversation, comment, and subscribe to all of the outlets that carry the MCW Cast.
Right. You can check out the video production on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and you can listen to it in podcast format on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Radio Public, and CastBox.
Wow.
Indeed.
You got all that out in one breath, too.
I was a little bit more controlled.
Last week I was here, like I said, with
First
Dante
time.
Caballero. Yeah, it was my first time.
Yeah, you say they say you never forget your first time.
That's true.
I never do, and it was so good. I finished early, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, and you came back for more.
Do you do that a lot?
I mean, takes a little bit to get used to it.
So I did repeat it last week, but for our listeners who are just joining us, Deacon Storm here is one half of our commentating team.
Kaboom.
And last week, the other half was our fill-in co-host, Brent Herring. So it was nice to have our commentators out here front and center that we don't normally see on camera. So anyway,
thank you very much for that.
Thank you for joining
getting
us
some
back.
notice. I like it. See
Just
our
a little.
face.
Don't let it go to your head because the studio's not that big.
Have you seen the size of this head already?
That's why I'm giving you the warning.
It is a massive dome. But you know what? We like special guests, whether they be our guest for the episode of the cast or guest co-hosts like Deacon and Brent.
That's right.
The more the merrier, I say. We miss you, Dan. Looking forward to having you right back here in the studio.
Oh, yeah.
But we want to also take a moment out just to thank all of our coffee club members. You know, that one of the ways that you can subscribe and show support for the MCW Cast is to become a coffee club member, as the eloquent Danny Mays reminds all of our fans each and every week right here on the MCW Cast.
Oh, yeah.
Tara, do we have any new coffee club members? Or
We don't have any new ones, but we have kept our ongoing ones, and they have been submitting questions to us. So, at the end of our show, we put it out there to allow people to ask our guests questions.
Right.
And if you want that insider access, then all you have to do is be one of our monthly recurring supporters at buymeacoffee.com, and then you too will get insider access to ask the guests that we bring in, and you just never know who we are going to bring in.
Well, I mean, I'm more of a nice latte person myself, so please stick around.
It is hot, so
join in. Yeah, it's really hot in here right now. So
iced coffee.
yeah.
yeah, we had a couple different variations of iced cold brew a few weeks back, and we want to have some more right here on the table. So yeah, thank you to all of our current coffee club members, and again, early access to ask whoever the guest is going to be some questions that maybe you have in your heart's desire to have answered. Have it done live right here on the MCW Cast by becoming a coffee club member.
That's right. We didn't talk about the Flashback Friday episode yet.
One of my favorite parts of every Friday is the Flashback Friday from
Well,
MCW Pro.
This one is just a little flashback.
Okay.
So we're only flashing back to 2020, to the last show before everything in Joppa, before everything shut down. So we're going to go back to Joppa Anniversary 2020, and it is Kakoa versus Rhett Titus for the MCW Heavyweight Championship.
That was a good match. I was there that night, and the place was on fire, which is
It
good.
was.
Like, I really do wish we had one more Joppa show before everything shut down, because that night the roof was completely blown off.
That's
Oh my
right.
gosh. Well, if
Yep.
the place was on fire, I hope Danny Mays reminded all the fans about the fire exit.
Needed you.
Yeah.
He's usually good about that.
So this is just building our anticipation to our return to live events here in Joppa, which, like I said, is going to be July 24th. So we are almost there. So if you haven't got your tickets, I know ringside has sold out. I believe we might have some third rows left, but yeah, get your tickets.
Yes.
All right. Well, that brings us to the matter at hand,
Yeah.
our episode that we're joining you for right now, this Tuesday at 8, and our special guest. I'm pleased to have on the cast to talk to all of us and you, the fans, former MCW Women's Champ, the lovely Amber Rodriguez.
That's real nice. It's been a minute since we've seen her here in this building, so
And, you know, her name's come up on several podcasts that we've done already.
Oh, yeah.
Her name has come up. And so one of our fans, actually one of our early Coffee Club questions actually pertained to Amber and wondering when she would be returning to MCW. So we do have her in studio. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll find out if she's on her way back, what's going on, and with the former MCW Women's Champion.
We hope you're enjoying this week's episode of the MCW Cast. At MCW Pro Wrestling, much like many small businesses throughout the country, the pandemic has presented many challenges. For a company like ours that hosts events with live audiences, the impact has been even more severe, and all of our forms of revenue have been cut off. In order to continue to engage with our fans on a regular basis, we made the decision to begin to produce the MCW Cast and are providing it for absolutely no cost on Facebook Live, Twitch, YouTube, and SoundCloud. If you'd like to support us during these challenging times, you can do so in several ways. The most popular way is to buy us a coffee to help fuel the cast. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast, and for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee, or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and receive several special perks. That's buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. You can also contribute directly on Cash App, MCW Wrestling, or on Venmo, MCW-Wrestling. You can also show your support for the MCW Cast while sporting some great gear by going to teespring.com/stores/MCWcast to pick up a full line of official MCW Cast merchandise, from coffee mugs and face coverings to t-shirts and sweatshirts. Also, don't forget to comment in the threads on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch to get your questions answered on a future episode. And you can also send us a tweet using the hashtag AskMCWCast. Thank you for your support, and now, back to the show.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the MCW Cast. I am Deacon Storm, Larry Legend, Tara, right next to me, and our first guest tonight, our only guest, excuse me, see, I screwed it up. Thanks, Tara. Amber Rodriguez, former MCW Women's Champion.
Hi, so
How's it
nice
going?
to be here.
Yeah, and not just were you the former MCW Women's Champion, we would be remiss in not saying that you were also the former COO of Black
Ooh.
Wall Street.
Yes,
Mhm.
ma'am, that's me.
That's right. This was one of our most powerful factions that we've ever had in MCW. And we've had them as guests in the studio as well. And now you're here. It would be great if we had everybody in here, though.
It would be extremely hot. But I got to say, whenever they announce Black Wall Street, it's always from where the money is. And I have a feeling, I think we finally figured out where it is, where it's coming from. COO right here.
Right. Well, COO is a very important job. And, you certainly took your team to win all the championships. I think at one point in time,
Yeah.
Black Wall Street had every belt.
Clean sweep, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Now,
So-
did Drolix win? Because I wasn't here yet. Did Drolix win the Shamrock Cup while you were still
Yes.
like where you went? So that's it.
They
That's
had them
all of
all.
it.
Yeah,
The
I
And
don't
the
know.
Grand Slam.
I don't know that we've ever had a faction in MCW do that before. I mean, I know I was with TQM for a long time, and we had a lot of the belts, but we didn't have a women's championship back then.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I have to go back and remember.
I looked through
It's
the
been
vault.
a long
Look through the
time.
vault.
So,
So yeah,
All right.
So yeah, I'll get into it. So Amber,
Yes.
we wanted to research your background. Like, how did you get to this point? Not like literally where you're sitting now, but I meant like with MCW, like how, like in wrestling, professional wrestling in general. Like, how did you get there?
How did I get into wrestling?
Yes.
So I started when I was 15, 16, over at Gilberg's. I started with my crazy brother, Chuck Lennox, over there. And, once they shut down, we lateraled over to here. So, I mean, I've always been a fan of wrestling. Like, I've always been test driven on moves from my brothers and stuff like that. So, I was always into it. Growing up, I loved Mickey James. I have to say, I have to give her flowers. Jazz, Lita, all the greats. You can't say Lita and not say Trish.
Right.
And so yeah, at my sophomore year in high school, started living my dream.
Now, did you know that you always wanted to be a wrestler, or you
Yes.
just liked it?
Yeah,
Okay.
like I never wanted to be like a doctor, a lawyer, or an active duty military member, or an esthetician, or an owner of a skincare line. But life throws things at you, and you roll with it. And I'm blessed. I'm blessed.
Now, you mentioned that your crazy brother, Chuck Lennox, for
Yeah.
those of us that are unaware, you and Chuck Lennox are blood relatives?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So you grew up together,
Yes.
both, I guess, being really big wrestling fans and
Yes.
probably practicing moves on one another
Oh
and
yeah.
doing matches and all that,
Yeah.
that
Wait,
kind
were
of
you
stuff.
the only girl in a house full of brothers?
Mhm.
Oh my!
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have two best friends that I call my sisters, and eventually I started picking on them. But
Yeah, well, 15, 16 is around the earlier end of the spectrum for getting involved in the business. And
Yeah.
yeah, Gilberg's is where you landed. How did you and Chucky end up doing that? Was that a joint thing? You both went down there and signed up to check it out, or did he start
Yeah.
before you? Okay.
yeah, he did start before me, and then I, eventually followed his footsteps. Because I mean, when I heard about it, I was like, oh my god, like I have to do this. Like
Yeah.
it was no question about it. My parents, however, weren't so enthused about it, but they eventually came around.
I was just gonna ask that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like, whose parents are though? Like, it never really
I
goes
mean,
well for any of us.
occasionally you meet someone whose parents are like, "Yeah, that's great. Go be a wrestler," and then other times,
Unless your parent is a wrestler, then I feel like they'd be more understanding.
Oh yeah.
right,
Mhm.
right. Yeah, that is very true. I know people would ask me, "Oh, are you going to let your kids be wrestlers?" And I was like, "Well, why wouldn't I? I mean, like I can't
Yeah.
tell them no. Wouldn't that be kind of hypocritical?"
I mean, I always say about my daughter, as long as it doesn't involve street corner, hey, do what you gotta do.
I like that.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's legal and you like it, okay.
So let me ask you, a lot of the times when we have guests on the show, we talk about their early days of training. And truly, if there was kind of like a class photo, some of the other folks that have gone on to do great things in the world of professional wrestling, who were some of the people that were involved in Gilberg's school when you first joined besides Chuck?
Oh, so many. Jessica Carr, Casey Lennox. The three of us actually started together.
Oh, wow.
We were in the same class, so it's crazy, like how life goes, Who else? He used to go by Desmond Xavier.
Mm.
Yeah.
I was thinking
Yeah.
that I was going to be kind of unearthing that, but
Mm-hmm.
again, we see that you were surrounded by a lot of like very vibrant energies.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't know Desmond Xavier. I guess, what is he, Nash Wesley? I don't know what that
Yeah,
is
I don't
right
keep
now,
up.
something. I know he's an NXT. What happened to the NXT Tag Team Champions, and that's something
Right.
you can hang your hat up on about. But a lot of people don't know that his origins before he went out there to Ohio started right here in Maryland. So he's kind of an MCW alum that I always say is kind of like pushed to the back of the line. But yeah, that's, he's done some great things. And those other names that you mentioned, Casey Lennox, still grinding. I just saw her doing some work with MLW.
I just
Yeah.
wrestled her 2-3 weeks ago
Oh, wow.
over in Mississippi. So yeah,
Hey.
she looks great.
Wow, doing the old Mississippi line,
Oh,
that
yeah.
old tour down in
Oh, yeah.
down in Mississippi. I never made
The
it.
sip.
Yeah, I haven't made it yet, but it's on the bucket list. Wow, that's amazing that you came up with those individuals. So, what was it like when you first got there? Did you kind of have the inside intel from Chucky, or
It was a little intimidating. Because I was a kid.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like, around a bunch
That's
of
really
adults.
young.
Like it was a little intimidating. But Earl and Rich, they were the best trainers anybody could ever ask for, and I am so proud and honored to even say that that they trained me. because they're very patient, and
Yeah.
it was like having two dads like in the ring with you. Like, you know, they were very patient, but at the same time, it's like, don't get on their bad side, you know. So
Right.
it was great, and you know, to have people that you can, you know, continue to call on like throughout your career, you know, like, hey, is this a dumb idea, you know what I mean, or whatever, to just kind of lean on for support. It's amazing. So yeah, to answer your question, at first it was a little intimidating, but you know, of course I warmed up having, you know, such great people around like that.
Yeah, we had the Holy Rollers, Earl and Rich, as guests here a couple months ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of our most popular episodes ever. You know, people really were interested in what they had to say, and of course, their, you know, cumulative experience and the you know, things that they've done and what they're able to pass on. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's two of the great minds from Maryland wrestling. I actually, when eventually Dan and Mark and Jeff decided, Larry, you're going to have to start taking a few bumps to give the crowd their comeuppance. I spent a lot of the time working with specifically Earl and Rich, so I know exactly what you mean about just the patience that they have with teaching you the way to bump off of a drop kick, or you know, the surprise of whatever have you that can happen in the squared circle. So yeah,
It
those
takes
are
a lot. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
no,
off.
absolutely.
It takes a lot of patience. I've been helping out at the Elevate Pro Performance Center out in Chalmette, Louisiana, and it takes a lot of patience, you know, to really understand or kind of stoop down to someone's level and like remember where you were, where you had to do something over and over and over until you got it right, and just having that patience and knowing eventually they're going to get it, you know. So
yeah, time.
Good hope there.
That was good. Well, you know, repetition works, Deacon.
It does.
You know, repetition works, Deacon.
it does.
So
I see what you did there.
yeah. So all those drop down leapfrogs, you know.
I can repetition a million hip tosses and everyone will be crooked. Like, that's just the way that it'll be. Okay, so repetition, yes, but I'm going to tell you there are things that I'm never going to.
Well, you're not going to get
do.
everything.
I remember your crooked hip tosses, and I remember
They've never changed.
I don't know.
Ever.
I don't know who it was. If it was Nick Tarantino or somebody, Chad Austin, maybe. They said, you know, like when you post up, just sort of like you're diving, like put your head straight up and your body will follow.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah.
know. Mine went a different direction. Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to get that once you go head over heels. It's like everything just kind of goes
Yeah,
up
and
and
the crazy thing is I could do a flip bump perfectly straight, you know? Like,
See, I'm the opposite.
And I've seen that before.
really?
I'm
Yeah,
the opposite.
See? And no problem. You put that other body next to mine where I have to like post, and all of a sudden I'm like sideways.
I can take
every
a hip
single
toss with
time.
no problem, but my flip bumps are crooked.
See?
Interesting.
It is. It is really interesting. So, well, our mind plays different tricks on us. Like when we cross our body, like if you reach across to something, there are just different kinds of things that prevent some people from doing
Well,
that.
that's the thing. I landed on my neck one time.
Oh, yeah.
When I was
That'll
like
do it.
16.
That'll
So
do
then
it.
It's
That's all
like
it takes.
And ever
subconscious.
since then, yeah. And I think it's that mental aspect. Okay, this person's right here guiding me over.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah, it only takes one. So I know I've been dropped on my head a lot.
And that's over. So you mentioned Jazz, Trish, Lita, Mickey. So who was it that really, like, when you started watching wrestling, like, who was it that first captivated you, that made you go, you know what, I think I might want to give this a shot?
Well, first it was Shawn Michaels.
Okay.
It was Shawn Michaels. I wanted to be like Shawn Michaels. Like, he was just so just captivating, everything he does, even his entrance. And the biggest thing for me, because I grew up in a Christian household, so watching him find his faith and bring that into his persona and show that, hey, you can still do this on this large platform and still keep your faith and not lose who you are.
Yeah.
You know, so that was very inspiring. Even at that age, it was inspiring.
So you were kind of influenced by post back injury return 2001 HBK when he came back and had the street fight with Triple H at that SummerSlam.
Yes, that's
Okay.
actually one of my favorite matches.
That is one of the best matches from the 2000s, I dare say. Okay, yeah. I was really impacted by Shawn Michaels as well, but more the cocaine-fueled, treacherous, pill-popping playboy that kind of, you could tell, was lurking behind him when he lost his smile and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That was the one who kind of gripped me into it, but that's a that is a hell of a model to kind of like hook you into the business.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like you and I that were influenced by Shawn
But-
Michaels,
but I
HBK.
feel like he never really lost that. Like once he did, turn into like he brought his faith full circle. His character and persona didn't necessarily change.
And that's
at
what I
all.
love about it. Like
Yeah.
he's still, you know what I mean? I'm still me, just a little cleaner.
I
You know
just
what I
just
mean?
love the Lord.
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
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 Well, I
Silly
mean,
difference.
it's a little bit different than the gyrating that he used to do. Remember,
yeah.
there were a lot of
Yeah.
hip thrusts.
Okay.
That's
with
why I
Shawn
said a little
Michaels,
bit
you know?
cleaner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And-
and that whole like straight edge thing kind of became like, I guess, trendy or
In
a thing,
vogue.
Oh, yeah.
acceptable.
No,
You
I
know what I mean?
remember.
And
I
that
remember.
was, I think there was the kind of misconception that every wrestler partied or every wrestler did steroids or every, you know what I mean? And this was a time when you could be more who you were and you didn't
Yeah.
have to do those things, you
Yeah,
know?
it's
and
refreshing. And people
Yeah.
need that positivity and they need to see that positive role model, especially kids. You know
Sure.
what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
so more parents will encourage their children to
Yeah.
go into wrestling.
yeah.
But no, I
Honestly,
mean,
yeah.
if you think that the role models that your kids are looking up to are doing bad things, you're certainly not going to encourage them. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think it is very important that you're having good role models that represent a whole wide range of personas and backgrounds and interests and
Yeah,
things like that.
and that's the thing.
Mhm.
Even the change that I went through the first time around that I was wrestling, I was doing it just because I loved it. I just want to be a wrestler. It's just what I want to do. Now I live to inspire, especially after becoming a mother.
Mhm.
I live to inspire. Like I always pray before my matches. If I could reach at least one person, even if it's one other little girl or little me out there, you know what I mean, that can see someone doing something on such a large platform and reaching people in a positive way, so it's just something I love to do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, now, real quick, you mentioned almost injuring yourself around 16, and I think you
Yeah.
said around 15, 16 is when you got involved. When you signed up, that seems to be on the younger side of a new student that has to sign a waiver
Yeah.
about liability and all of that good
16
stuff.
is the minimum.
Yeah.
Okay, were you were you the youngest in your class, or oh, wow? So what was that like, just being around?
It was awkward at times because it's like you can't really relate. Like they weren't really like, I don't want to say they weren't my peers, but there was such an age gap to where it's like, I'm worried about like, I don't know, some dude at school, and then it's like,
You're training at night and you got to get up early and go to high school.
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and-
So it's like
Good
it
call out.
yeah.
like wrestling was what we all kind of had in common,
Mhm.
So
And
That's
probably-
the thing that's so neat about wrestling is that you have friends that you would not encounter in the
Mhm.
real
Oh,
world.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
really do. You meet all kinds of people, and everybody just kind of seems to accept each other. You all have something in common, and it doesn't seem to matter age or where you're from or any of that stuff. You know?
yeah, I compare wrestling to military a lot because it's kind of like some of the people I work with, I'm like, I would not like.
Ever.
Yeah, like I'd never
Yeah.
associate with
I
Deacon
mean,
Storm in
yeah.
real life. I mean,
And
oh my god,
I would be trying. I'd spend my life. That'd be my life's work.
exactly.
Mhm.
See?
But it's just funny how it's that same kind of thing. Like we all come from all aspects of life, all areas of the world,
Mhm.
and this is our common denominator, and this is what we have to relate to each other with.
That
So,
uniform.
yeah.
Yeah, does it.
Right on.
So-
Well, I have a question. So you started training. It was kind of intimidating to first start after your brother, and then you kind of assimilated into the wrestling way of life. Around what time did you kind of start getting nudged that we're about to put you on shows? Or I don't know how Gilbert School runs. Were there birthday parties? Was that your first? When was your first foray into actually competing in front of a crowd? Is what I'm trying to get at.
Foray. So I'm gonna use that. No, so when I was 18, like I had to wait until I was 18 to wrestle in a lot of states.
Especially this
Um,
one, yes.
yeah,
That is the thing.
Took my first match ever. I was 17. It was my first booking. I will never forget. It was against primetime Amy Lee.
Oh wow!
I wrestled her. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Legend.
Okay,
So what a first match
wow.
to have.
Jeez.
So yeah, I'll never forget that. That was my
No.
first match ever, and then I had to wait on a lot of bookings until I was 18.
Mhm.
But because I had been training for so long already, when I did take those bookings, it was like people would like, I don't know, not to sound cocky or anything, but people would see me work, and it's like I've been training for this long, like I'm starting to know what I'm doing a little bit. You know what I mean? Like the light bulbs coming on. So I just remember just staying humble, and I knew I didn't want people to have that negative connotation, like, oh, she's the kid, she's clueless, she, or has a bad attitude, or just thinks this is just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because I feel like a lot of younger people kind of have that like stereotype almost.
Right.
So I remember just, really making sure I was checking myself and checking my attitude at the door. So.
Well, a big part of that too is a lot of younger, especially like it's not too many people get to have like a full year of training without getting put on shows, because we all see it nowadays where people will walk into a school and
Train for
within
3
2
days.
months,
Right.
yeah, 3 days, and it's like, whoa, okay,
And
come on.
that's what I was going to say, that it kind of coming in at 16, knowing that at least in this state anyway, and like you said, several others, you've got 2 years before you're ever going to be on a show. So that kind of takes that pressure off. So you're not coming in going, when am I going to be on a show? When am I going to be on a show?
Yeah.
Like, you have 2 years. It's like an apprenticeship. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you don't get that job till you're done. So
Yeah.
like, and we've had, we train 16-year-olds here, and we've had several come through, and they really take that 2 years. They can take that 2 years to, first of all, make sure that that's what they really want, but they can work on their character development without the pressure of, oh my God, I have to be in front of a show. You know what I mean?
It's like, how
So-
bad do you want it?
Right.
You know what I mean? How much are you willing to stay committed to keep coming to training every week?
Knowing
And
you're not going to get booked, right?
exactly
Yeah.
for a while. So,
And while you're in school too.
yeah, and
Yeah.
while you're in school and managing everything, and God, after school programs and stuff, like, I can go on for days. But like,
I can imagine you
having
like
all
getting
that.
up early in the morning for school, and like everything hurts, and you're like, you go to your
Mhm.
little, your desk attached to the chair thing, and you're trying to sit down gingerly. Like,
Yeah.
I remember those early days of training, like
Yeah.
just the bruises from hitting the ropes and stuff. Like, females just don't hit the ropes in
So
the
this
same
is-
position.
so not to cut you off, but this is a true story. Like, one day, one of my teachers pulled me aside and was like, "Hey, is everything okay at home?"
Oh no! Did you have
Because
bruises?
yeah,
Yeah, they're being beaten.
Oh no!
I was like, "No, I'm fine." She's like, "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
Because like no one will know. It's just sit here. I'm like, "No, it's fine. I'm training to be a wrestler." She's like, "Oh, you're on the wrestling team." I was like, "No, like a pro wrestler, like WWE and stuff." She's like, "What?"
Yeah, right.
And so that was a whole nother thing.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Oh my!
Wow, what a
Well,
comedy of errors that is. You're training and you get the rope burns. You know how it is when you first start
Yes,
training?
Oh,
the,
yeah.
oh my God, the
Matt
the
burns.
big
Uh-huh.
deep bruises like on the underside of your arm, like
Yeah.
you can't explain those away.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
You never know how you got them, so you can't even say what
the
happened.
ropes, you get them
Yeah.
from.
Oh,
the,
well, I mean, I'm
like,
just saying, like, there's
I
been
mean,
a lot
unless
of
you're like a
times.
6-foot tall woman,
Yeah,
like
well-
for the most part, like we get bruises in places that you're
Yeah.
not going to get a bruise.
Very
Yeah.
true. Very
You know,
true.
I mean,
There would be drills where we just had to run the ropes like over and over again, just like making it
Oh my
worse and
God.
worse. Like,
and it would just hurt so bad.
And don't
Yeah.
you complain? Don't you complain?
oh my gosh, no, or you'll be the only one doing them while everyone else has moved on to something else. And
Don't you say nothing?
yeah,
I know, yeah.
go.
No, I
Ah.
can't even imagine doing that and like going to high school. I mean,
Yeah.
when I started training, I was working in landscaping, so I had to get up and like do manual labor in the mornings, and it was like everything hurts. I can't even imagine like having to like go to school and just pretend like
Yeah, and people
you're
think
a
you're being
regular
like
kid.
abused at home or something.
oh my gosh. Well, good job for your teacher for looking out for you. Though,
Yeah.
You know? Teachers
Yeah.
are mandated
Indeed, yeah,
reporters, like, that's a
100%.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
you know, there are parents away from our parents, and sometimes our parents, when our parents aren't doing a good job.
right.
Mhm.
So they were
So,
looking
yeah,
out.
yeah.
for
Tip
you.
of the cap to the
Yeah.
teachers out
Now,
there.
have you ever had a teacher come to any of your matches?
I haven't. It's one thing that
Oh,
hasn't
that's sad.
happened. No, but I've had people like from my commands nowadays. They'll come out. And
Oh, well, that's
support,
good. That's
so-
pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
gets it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about a little bit more about what you've done in MCW and some other promotions that you've worked for. So stay with us, and we'll be right back with former MCW Women's Champion Amber Rodriguez.
Show your support for the MCW Cast while sporting some great gear by going to teespring.com/stores/MCWcast. You can pick up a full line of official MCW Cast merchandise, from coffee mugs and face coverings to t-shirts and sweatshirts. Visit teespring.com/stores/MCWcast. Fuel the MCW Cast by visiting buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. And for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee. Or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and get several additional perks. That's buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast.
All right, and we're back here with our special in-studio guest, Amber Rodriguez. Before we went to break, Tara was mentioning that we were going to get into, some of the places that you journey to, including here at MCW Pro. But I want to let you know that when I really started to notice that you were kind of gaining a lot of steam in the industry was for that all-women's tournament that we did in Brooklyn, Valkyrie, Valkyrie Women's Pro or Valkyrie Ladies Pro.
That was forever ago.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So that was just to ring a bell. That was 2014 is when that was. Well, me too. But you know how Facebook has that wonderful thing of showing you like, remember this day in history, and you're like, oh my gosh, that was so long ago. But I remember that was one of the first times that I saw you outside of the Maryland region, all the way up in Brooklyn, New York, competing in a pretty prestigious tournament at the time. So yeah, let's talk about when you first kind of left the nest of Gilberg's to fly off and do other things. When was that, and when did you start to notice that you really were gaining a lot of steam in the industry, as it were?
That's on IDW TV, by the way.
The Valkyrie?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm going to have to watch that. That was so long ago.
Right? Like, I had to watch it for the nostalgia.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I look at myself, I'm like, oof. Like,
Yeah.
but,
Sumi Sakai, La Rosa Negra. Like,
and that was actually me and Rosa's second match together. I had worked her for NWA Ring Warriors before, out in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So when I really started to get traction, it was around when I was 18, I started reaching out because I knew I didn't want to just be in the Maryland bubble.
Right, of course not.
And then especially like women's wrestling, especially women's indie wrestling, at that time, it wasn't what it is now. It was starting to kind of come up though, and but it was starting to come up in, other places, like you remember like WSU at the time,
of course,
and places like that. And I'm like, I really want to get in on this. But one guy I really have to shout out is Pat Buck for giving me a shot with Pro Wrestling Syndicate. I even had their I think it was their Bombshells title at the time. I think I was like 19-ish. Don't quote me on that. I want to say I was 19. But like he really gave me a chance because it's a lot to ask on somebody, like, hey, I just started taking bookings, just left train. Like for anyone who like just graduated wrestling school and like reaching out to other promoters and like you don't really have like a plethora of matches or like a really extensive resume, so it's really intimidating like trying to branch out. So I'm just super appreciative of guys like Pat and Valkyrie. I cannot remember who booked me for that, but
that was Chris Levin.
Yes, thank you.
AKA Baby Ref.
Yeah, so like things like that, like it's I'm always super grateful for them taking a chance on little old me.
Yeah,
so.
And for those of you who don't know, Pat Buck, current WWE agent, that's funny. I have been shown the door by many different promotions that I've worked for. And we must have just missed each other in PWS because I was pretty much, when I was a New Yorker, so we're talking like 2012-ish, actually 2003 to about 2013, I lived in New York. I was their announcer. I was their stand-up, MC and commentator. So we must have just missed each other the time that I kind of lost that job with PWS. But wow, that's an amazing promotion. Back in the day, they used to pull out all the stops. I remember they booked the Great Muda back when that was unheard of in the U.S. For like an indie. So that's an amazing stop on your journey with PWS and Valkyrie.
Yeah.
Where else did you end up landing besides WSU? Did you work for DJ Hyde in WSU?
Oof.
I mean, he's such a polarizing figure.
Man.
It's funny. Remember, Ryo was thanking him for kind of really getting him to certain places, and then we've had other guests that are kind of like, so it's funny that DJ actually gets brought up as much as he does on the podcast and the reactions, right?
I'm not gonna say anything about him, but no, me and Nyla, we would go up there for Dojo Wars. And then we've been to some WSU shows. Actually, I managed Sassy Steffi. I was a member of her faction for a little while. I always say to this day, I think they mixed me up with Amanda Rodriguez.
Like you go out there.
But so that was the only stop I had there. And then I still love those times because that's when me and Blizz got really close. Me, her, and Blizz would hit the road together and go to those shows. So that was a really fun time in my life, and just getting to pick his brain and everything he has to offer. So that was great. Like, even to this day, he helps me out so much with like character development, or like even if there's like something new I want to try, but I feel like it's he's just always someone I can call on, and I'm grateful for that. But no, to answer your question, those are the only times I really had run-ins with him, and it didn't really go anywhere. So
Okay, just managing the one time and then not really care.
like a one and done.
Okay, yeah, he's been known to do that to quite a few females in the industry, and that's kind of why he's such a polarizing figure. Yeah,
I love that word.
If you will, well,
You really, I want to touch on women's wrestling for a second. You really came in at like a pivotal time. So
Right.
like I started like 10 years before you, and it was like, I mean, I was doing girls shows in bars, and not good bars. Like,
I've seen
they're-
tapes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. All right. So.
I mean, one of my favorite nurses right here. So.
Oh, stop. Anyway, so, and the thing was, we took a lot of these jobs because, they were bookings. We were paid really well for them. And like, we were working every weekend and weekdays too. Like, it was great. Like, Mickey James and I would ride to shows together, and, Kim or Candy from MCW. Like, we had a whole little group of girls that would go to these shows. It was great because we got lots of work. But like, I wouldn't show my kids those shows. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it was just such a different thing. And like, the ones that we were like in our little clique with, we all wanted to do more. We wanted women's wrestling to be more. And this was, the whole Lita and Trish Stratus thing hadn't happened yet, And so by the time you came along, those things had happened. And like, it was really putting women in a spotlight that didn't require them to have bra and panties matches. And,
Right.
You know what I mean? Where, oh my gosh, women can actually wrestle. So
Yeah.
how was that for you to be like part of this new wave of women's wrestling?
It was amazing. And, I definitely look at it like, I got to give like you and Kim your flowers for sure, because it's like you guys brought it here, and then like me and Jesse brought it here, and then, it keeps growing and growing. But to even be a part of just a generation of women's wrestlers, that to look at them today, I am so proud of Nyla Rose. It's my sister. It's my best friend. I'm so proud of her. We came up together. And to just look at her now, I'm so proud. But yeah, to answer your question, so like women like that, like Claudia Solis, who just came back, La Rosa Negra, who's still pushing, like so many women, that to just see them flourish now. And it's weird, like I looked at Casey Lennox a few weeks ago. I was like, oof, we're the vets now. like
it happens before
like
you know it,
it's
you
on our
blink and
shoulders
you're
now.
the
Yeah.
I'm an
Right.
old lady.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I've got you do too. We've got matches on VHS.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a
Yeah.
whole different generation.
Yeah, but it keeps growing and growing. Women's wrestling is precious, and it's about time everywhere realizes that and sees like just it's money. It's money. Like we've put the work in. We've paid our dues. We can go just as hard as the guys, if not harder. Because I've definitely seen some women's matches on the card that were the best match on the card. A lot of promotions are even doing 2 women's matches now, or 3, or trying to make it half and
Women
half.
headline pay-per-views.
Or women
I
headlining,
mean,
yeah.
Everything that was
WrestleManias.
going to be a
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, honestly, to see not just 2 women headline WrestleMania, but 2 Black women headline WrestleMania, like it
Right.
was just amazing to see. So it's only up from here. I do feel that there can be a lot of growth in women's roles backstage. I do feel that I'd love to see like more female creative writers, more female agents, more female producers. Like I'd love to see stuff like that. We've got more female refs coming up now. So yeah, I mean it's only up from here.
I think that's really important too, what you said about the backstage rules, because I mean that's actually a thing across all sports. I mean, of course we're talking wrestling here, but that's something that needs to be fixed in all sports. Like you said, we have female refs that are coming up, not only in wrestling but in basketball. The NFL's doing it now, and to kind of branch off from that, step back a little bit. You're because it's next up on the bulletin here. You had this loser leaves match with Mickey James,
Yes.
one of the top women's wrestlers in the world. So why don't you tell us about that, like something that was going through your head when you were preparing for a match of that caliber, and at any point in your career where you're just like, whoa, I got Mickey James standing across from me.
What time is it? So, so that whole story, I remember when, I can't remember if it was Cradle or Drawlex who broke the news to me, like, oh, Mickey's coming. And I thought it was a rib, not gonna lie. Like, because I grew up watching this woman, and like, you know, Trish and Lita, they had like an amazing feud, but Mickey and Trish, one of the best, if not the best, like rivalry.
My favorite
in women's wrestling.
Honestly, my favorite.
Or in wrestling in general. Like, I'll even say that. Like, it's just amazing. Like, the level of acting, you know, just the emotion that was in there. So I've always admired her. She's like, you know, my favorite women's wrestler. And so to kind of share a ring with somebody that you like grew up idolizing, it's like a pinch me moment, you know, but of course we have to remain professional. And I just had to keep telling myself, like, they would not give you this if you didn't deserve it. They didn't give it to anyone else. They gave it to you, you know? So I had to keep telling myself that, like, I deserve this. I've earned it. I've worked hard, you know, and to get to pick her brain. That woman is a genius. She, like, you know,
I've worked her at least 100 times.
You know, the magic she creates.
real.
I would have an idea, and she'd take my little idea and bring it here. Even the first match we had, you know, after the first match we had, I was told we'd be working again, and that's when I pitched the idea. What if I didn't believe I lost the belt? Like, what if I was just like, I just snapped and I did not believe? She's like, that's like, you should have. And that's where the invisible belt came from. So just the creative influence that she had on me. I always say, like, I wouldn't be the performer I am today if it weren't for that string of matches that I had with her.
And she's so easy to work with.
Yes, she's very humble, very down to earth. She's not like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, some women are, but I mean, people are who they are, but she's just so willing to help and just willing to
and make you look good
down to your level.
You know
yes,
what I mean?
And make
like
you look good.
It's not about what does she want to get in. It's how to make your match together be the best that it can be. Oh, she's awesome to work with.
But yeah, so back to your question, as far as the Loser Leaves Town match, I was done. Like, that was it. That was my last match. I already signed my contract with the military, and I was just done with wrestling. I had severe burnout. I had gone through some very traumatic events in my life, and I was mentally checked out. But just having this feud with her is just kind of what kept the fire going in me, and just it's what kept me showing up.
Now, there were a lot of fans who were shocked by this because you were really, as Larry had mentioned, kind of at the top of your game. I mean, you were getting recognition, you were working places, like people were coming to see Amber Rodriguez.
And that's the crazy part because behind the scenes, I was going through so much.
Right.
You know, that a lot of people didn't know about. And so that's the crazy part. But yeah, that match, I was like, I'm putting my all into this. Like, this is it. Or I thought it was it. This is it. And so to this day, it's one of my favorite matches that I've ever had. I'm still looking for something to top it because it's up top for me. Because
that chance.
Get that chance. I
Maybe,
really
hopefully.
Well, I don't know how long. Is there a statute of limitations on these Loser Leave Town matches?
Aren't you on the championship committee?
I am on the championship committee. I think I'm like chairperson of the championship committee or something.
I don't know. Chair right now.
So I am, and I didn't break my chair. So, yeah, I mean, well, nobody ever retires in wrestling, right? That's the running
Clearly
gag,
not.
You know?
I mean, I literally took, I think it took me 4 years to say, all right, I'm going to get back into it. So, yeah.
So when you left town, you know, you went and you joined the armed forces, and then you thought, for all intents and purposes, you're done, right?
Yeah.
You moved away, you know, had a little domestic life, and you know, and you were settling into your new role.
Yeah.
Now, while all that was going on, were you still watching wrestling? Were you still thinking about wrestling?
For a while, I wasn't. It wasn't until my baby was 1 where I started even watching it again. Because like I said, I had gone through so much, I just didn't want anything to do with it for a while, you know. But yeah, that's when I started watching it again. And then in 2019, I was deployed to California. I know he's like, that's not a deployment, but yeah, I was deployed to California for some training. And there was a wrestling school nearby the base. And, we were doing a lot of intense workouts there, but I was like, oh, why don't I just go work out over at the school one day? So I hit up the guy, this guy named Ricardo that wrestled in Mexico for the last 20 years. So shout out to Ricardo. But yeah, so hit him up on Facebook or whatever, and went out and rolled around a little bit, and it was like riding a bike, and so I kept coming back throughout the rest of my deployment, and then I got stationed in good old Mobile, Alabama, and that's when I found Elevate Pro, and I was like, why don't I take a booking and see what happens, and started going to their school, and that's kind of how I fell back into it, because in the back of my mind, I always knew there's a chance that I'll come back. And after I had my daughter, like I said, I live to inspire, and I always knew I wanted her to see, you can have it all. You can be a mom. You can chase your dreams. You can have your career. You can have your family. You can have whatever you want in this life. It just depends on how bad you want it. Right. And I want her to see that, hey, I went through some kind of crappy things, but I came back from it, and I came back 10 times harder, and I'm coming back for everything.
Yeah. So. I mean, it's a juggling act for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I've gotten kind of lucky with my kids that, like, my older one doesn't like sports, because I was always like, oh God, what if I have to, like, go to, like, Little League or something? Like, then I can't go to shows. But fortunately he didn't like sports, so I was like, dodge that bullet. But yeah, it's a constant juggling act, you know what I mean? Because you want to spend time with your kids, but, like, you also want to be a role model, and you want to share this with them too. Yes. So now, does your daughter like wrestling?
She's just starting to get into it. She'll be 4 next month. Okay. So she's just starting to get into it. I actually brought her up on stage with me one of my shows last month, and she was just loving the attention. So I think she really liked the wrestlers in the back trying to give her candy. So
I mean, she's almost 4, so easily swayed.
But yeah, no, she's starting to like watch it with me more now and get into it. So she does the Sasha Banks thing. So it's fun to see.
And there's so many great role models for her now too. And you're still in Alabama, right?
Unfortunately,
okay.
Yes.
Well, there's the Belladonna division. They're running shows there 4 times a year. Exactly. Like, this is another movement. This is like a second resurgence.
It's
of,
another
like,
wave.
Women's. Exactly. Yeah. It really is. I mean, wrestling's always kind of gone in these like 7-year cycles. Where you ride it up and down, and here we are again. So you're coming back, and I'm just saying you're coming back now because you're officially back, right? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're working shows again, so you're back. But you're coming back at a great time. There's even more eyes on women's wrestling, and they're not laughing at it now.
Right.
Which is
Yeah.
great. I mean,
yeah. And these girls, man, you got to get your cardio in, because
right.
they're fast now.
Right.
Those Texas girls too.
Have you gotten any offers to go like overseas and work?
Well, unfortunately, because I'm still active duty, that's a tricky one overseas. But I mean, I don't have too much time left on my contract, so that's definitely something I want to pursue in the future.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Right on. Well, I want to get into a couple more subjects, some things you touched on in the last segment, but we do need to pause for internet station identification. So stay with us, fans. We're going to be right back here with Amber Rodriguez.
We hope you're enjoying this week's episode of the MCW Cast. At MCW Pro Wrestling, much like many small businesses throughout the country, the pandemic has presented many challenges. For a company like ours that hosts events with live audiences, the impact has been even more severe, and all of our forms of revenue have been cut off. In order to continue to engage with our fans on a regular basis, we made the decision to begin to produce the MCW Cast, and are providing it for absolutely no cost on Facebook Live, Twitch, YouTube, and SoundCloud. If you'd like to support us during these challenging times, you can do so in several ways. The most popular way is to buy us a coffee to help fuel the cast. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast, and for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee, or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and receive several special perks. That's buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. You can also contribute directly on Cash App, MCW Wrestling, or on Venmo, MCW-Wrestling. You can also show your support for the MCW Cast while sporting some great gear by going to teespring.com/stores/MCWcast to pick up a full line of official MCW Cast merchandise, from coffee mugs and face coverings to t-shirts and sweatshirts. Also, don't forget to comment in the threads on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch to get your questions answered on a future episode. And you can also send us a tweet using the hashtag AskMCWCast. Thank you for your support, and now, back to the show.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the MCW Cast. I am Deacon Storm, alongside Tara and Larry Legend, with our guest, former MCW Women's Champion, Amber Rodriguez. Now, real quick, Larry, at the end of the last segment, you said you had some things that you wanted to say, but we had to take that break, so I'm going to hand it back
Oh,
off to
yeah.
you.
So there was something you touched on just when we were talking about the role models now, and you mentioned 2 African-American women that, main evented, a pay-per-view. We've come a long way.
Yes.
But, we mentioned a name a couple times already, La Rosa Negra, and if I remember correctly, it wasn't too long ago that La Rosa Negra actually brought up a lot of the hurtful, racist things that another woman in this industry, Tessa Blanchard, had apparently, I guess kind of hazing her or, just giving her a hard time on a tour in Japan. In all your interactions and walks through life with Mickie James, Nyla Rose, whoever, have you ever experienced any kind of, discrimination that you felt against, whether it be a promoter or another competitor or anything like that? Because I was shocked when those allegations came out. I know both of those, women. I've announced them. Never been anything but respectful to me, but it was just abhorrent to think of those types of things that were being said, and that is the industry that you're a part of. So I want to know if you ever in your walks of life experienced any kind of discrimination because of the color of your skin by someone that wasn't like you.
I'll say I've never experienced it to my face.
Okay.
Not to my face. But I've heard things on the back end, this is why you didn't get booked. So I have experienced it in that way, not so much in your face kind of thing, which honestly, in a weird way, I would have more respect for, because it's like, I mean, hey, if that's how it is, then let me know. You know what I mean? Right. But yeah, it is a harsh reality, but like I said, we're getting better, but it's still a lot of work that needs to be done. So
absolutely. And being, one of the 3 people of color around the MCW cast, I think we are raising a huge banner for diversity and inclusion.
Absolutely.
But I think it's an important thing to bring up.
Yes.
Again, with bringing up La Rosa Negra and just sort of your journey, Mickie James and all places in between. I just wanted to know personally, and I wanted our fans to know, during your journey, that this is a very real thing and is still something that's very problematic that a lot of us have to face to this day.
Well, honestly, I'm sorry, Sarah, I didn't mean to step
go
on
ahead.
you.
Yeah,
but I
let
was
him
going to say, honestly,
okay.
Larry, it is a thing
I'll
that
forget what I was
happens.
gonna say.
I'm sorry. It is a thing that happens to a lot of the persons of color in professional wrestling. I've been very fortunate that since I've been here since 2017, that is one thing I've never had to deal with. When unfortunately, in places I've been in the past, first coming up, that was the question I wanted to ask you about, your first, like the ideas that you have for yourself and your character. Me, as soon as I walked in to where I was going, it was immediately like, hey, you're a pimp, be a pimp. And when that happened, I cut my hair and I put the uniform on, and that all changed for me. But it's sad that I had to raise the flag of this country, which is a job I had, because I am a former soldier. A lot of people don't, if you don't know, I am a veteran. I was a veteran I was a soldier for 7.5 years. And I had to do that to kind of I had to use that to shield myself from that sort of racism. That's, whether it's blatant or whether it's that kind of closet thing where it's just kind of embedded in someone's DNA. It's something that we all have to deal with. And I'm very fortunate it's something I've never had to deal with.
Like when we had Ghetto Mafia on here, we were talking about like this typecasting, oh, you get to be the thugs, like you're being typecast. I wanted to ask you, Amber, have you watched the indie film Lady Wrestler?
I've seen half of it.
Okay.
I'm not done. I watched most of it on my 13-hour drive to my dad's house.
Okay, so yeah, so I actually wrote to the filmmaker so that I could get permission to show it in my class, because I teach DEI classes at the community college and also to Baltimore County Police Department. And so I like to take like what I know, which is wrestling, obviously, and try to pull in and say, hey, maybe you've never heard of these women wrestlers, but like this is what was also going on. Like
you got to know your roots. You got to
and-
know where you come from.
Yeah, and like I try to just reach students wherever they are. So like, I come in there and it's, oh, what is this white lady going to teach me about diversity? You know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm showing you that like these struggles, like there were, it was everywhere. But that I thought was a great film.
Yes.
So I wasn't sure if you'd watched
Yes.
it or not. So finish watching it.
I am. I definitely. It's on my
Good.
Prime. It's on my queue in Prime. So I'm gonna
Wonderful.
finish
Well,
watching it.
before it had come out to where you could actually watch it on streaming services, I had to ask the filmmaker for permission to show it because it wasn't available on anything. And I was like, oh, please let this film pick
Yeah.
up some steam, because a lot of indie
Yeah.
films get made, but then you can never watch them,
Yeah.
So
Yep.
And then I've also been fortunate enough to be on his podcast actually, and we discussed just women wrestlers of color and what can we do, to even take it a step further. So that was a great conversation. But yeah, and then you've got a lot going on now, like the Black Girl Magic shows that just happened. Black Wrestlers Matter. So there's a lot going on now. That's kind of showcasing us, and what we bring to the table.
Now, I have a question for you, and I'm glad you brought that up because I actually participated in a podcast not too long ago, and the host asked me if I felt like that at this point, since we've addressed that there is somewhat of a problem in the wrestling industry as pertaining to people of color. Do you think that now it's kind of like well, we kind of have to do a show that's called For the Culture, or else people are going to look at us like we're racist? And in as much, are we really assessing all of the talent evenly? The caliber of a Leo Rush, Amber Rodriguez, or are we just saying everybody gets to come play so that, we don't get any heat from, different groups out there?
So I'm going to say this might be a little controversial, but I feel like no matter how we get there, when we get there, take it to the next level. Take it to the next level. Make it so that might have been their mindset for the first one, but now we have to do a second one because we have so much of a following because of the amazing talents that were showcased here, and then it also falls on the fans too, in a way, asking for certain people, asking to see certain people, and the companies that actually listen to that feedback and bring them in. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but it brings up, let's just say, throwing it out there right now, GCW For the Culture.
Okay.
First GCW For the Culture was a huge deal. It got kind of kiboshed by the global gimmick, and then they did it finally at the Collective out in Indianapolis. And it was a great, great show. It was main evented by Air Fox and Too Cold Scorpio. Yeah, Jonathan Gresham versus Lee Moriarty. ACH versus Leo Rush. A lot of great matches. Well, the second For the Culture kind of, lost a little bit of that luster, a little bit of that star power. And when you were mentioning about the companies paying attention to the fans, well, there were a lot of wrestlers from the Midwest that I kind of had never heard of, who had a lot of people rallying behind them. Oh, GCW, you should book this person.
Yeah.
They're of color. Oh, GCW, give this person an opportunity. They're of color and they're unknown and have never gotten opportunities. And then when it came time to bring the dance to the center stage, it was not worthy. It didn't live up to the same kind of path that they had forged with the first For the Culture.
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of feel that, there needs to be more scrutiny to the message. It can't just be a...
See, you're more Malcolm X. I'm more Dr. King.
I guess, yeah.
But that's kind of parallels to to women's wrestling too. Like there was tons of women's wrestling, but a lot of it was crap. You know what I mean? So it was the weeding out that, eventually the good ones stay. You know what I mean?
Right,
the
right.
ones who suck are going to just fade off into, no man's
Sometimes.
land. One hopes. I mean, eventually they will.
I just resent and hope that there aren't any promoters out there that are just kind of basically, jumping on the bandwagon of what's in vogue, what's hot, what the
They
people
want
are
to be woke. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Right.
100%.
And there is backlash to doing things that are so specific, where you're just representing a culture or, a genre or something like that. And one of the things that kind of comes to my mind is like Black History Month, for example. Like I hear people every day because I teach this, well, why do we still have Black History Month? Because we don't have Black history in our history the other 11 months of the year. So wrestling is the same until you have people of color represented equally on any show, that's why things like this exist, why you have showcase shows where everybody is a person of color or everybody is a female or, where you have LGBTQ plus represented.
Yes.
That's why we have that, because it's not part of the mainstream culture. And that's what I always try to drive home. Like, we have that because it's not there the other 11 months or the other 12 shows of the year or whatever the case may be. It's because we're not there.
And a lot of the times, I'm sorry.
You go ahead.
A lot of the times when we're not being showcased, we'll make our own,
Make
Of
our
course.
own way.
Yeah, absolutely.
you know what I mean, which is totally fine. And for me, it's a lot for me to I won't say a lot, but I have to make sure that I'm putting everything out there because I have my African American roots, I have my Latina roots, I'm also part Cherokee. Like, I have so much to show, you know what I mean, and equally represent for everyone, and so that's one thing that I'm always proud of.
Yeah, we talked about that the other week with Ryo about representation. We touched on it a little bit with Dante, like it's important for people to see people who look like themselves up there on the TV
absolutely.
or, in the middle of a ring or holding up that championship belt. It's important.
Yeah, like what, Jazz and Jacqueline did for me. And, it is important. Representation is very important because it instills that hope in you that you can do it too.
Right.
Yeah, not just being up there and being the losers, which was kind of like what I saw growing up with Coco
Right.
Beware and Virgil.
Yes, or the comedy act.
Yeah, they're always
Yeah,
going to lose.
right.
Yeah. It kind of makes you wonder, when is the first African American AEW world champion? Is that somewhere on the horizon? Because, they have a healthy crop of people of color, but as of now, although they are in their infancy, that's been pretty much a white dominated championship.
Well, yeah. And what I was going to say too, like, you don't want to cross into the danger zone of pandering. Which and that's where, and I think that's what you were getting at earlier.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, you know.
Yeah, because you get to that point where it's like,
how many times does it have to be for the culture before these guys are just integrated into GCW shows?
right, like we're not going to
Yeah.
pick a
You
bunch
know,
of,
like how many times do we have to do this?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And
I didn't mean to cut you off, Deacon. I just got fired up.
We were in the same wavelength, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's really annoying when you see something like that. Like you said, the first one was great, second one was like, like why was the second one? Is it because you just kind of gave up and was like, well,
It's like
they're
a here you
black.
go.
They're black.
Right,
the
right.
black ones out there.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Right.
Right.
Like that's not enough. Like
Right.
that is nowhere near enough. And I hope at some point, and that goes for LGBTQ plus as well. Like there's got to be a point where the scales are even, and that everyone, in a way that is supportive, and these are people that are actually really good, can all be represented, and we all,
Right.
And then it's hard too because you don't want to just be the token either.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely
another
can
thing.
relate to that. Kind of with one of the companies that I'm most associated with these days. I'm wearing them on my cap. ICW No Holds Barred.
Love that hat. I love it, by the way.
Well, I love this promotion,
Yeah.
but one of the things that a lot of my peers have brought up to me is like, hey, there aren't that many people of color that are used regularly on ICW No Holds Barred. And it kind of is like a gloss over the whole show by them using you first. They put you out there first. Or here's a shining, handsome, African-American, well-spoken announcer. But then when you get into the meat and potatoes of everything else, none. No people of color. So what does that say? Are they just pandering and using you as the token and kind of like being like, hey, everyone, look over here?
We got one.
Mm.
That's all we got.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe one of the ways to address that attitude that permeates pro wrestling is just like how you were saying, is little by little,
Little by
inching
little.
Just
ourselves
go out
in
there and-
there.
yeah.
And kill it.
Just kill it.
Yeah.
Or
Exactly.
even if it's, and I've done this plenty of times. I'll work a show and, that everybody always says, oh, I need more women's wrestlers. I need more girls. And I'm like, okay, well, here's a list. You know what I mean? And, get other people in the door too. And so that's another thing, that we can do to kind of look out for each other.
Absolutely, 100%. And not just a list of girls, but a list of quality
Yes,
girls,
right.
and that's one of the
Whole
things.
nother topic.
Yeah, well,
Believe me,
yeah, there are a lot of girls out there, but they all of them good.
Yes, yeah.
Remember Lana Takaya?
Oh, yeah.
The
I
long-legged,
remember. Yeah.
back at the Dundalk
I
days.
remember.
Yeah,
Oh, God.
yeah.
I remember now. Yeah. So here you
I
are.
just
You are making a
name drop.
name and you're being a role model. And you talked about how you wanted to be a role model for your daughter, but not just your daughter, to somebody out there in the crowd. So when you go out there, are you looking like, do you connect? Would you look for like that young girl out in the crowd? Like, do you look to make that connection when you're walking to the ring?
It's not even so much I mean, as a baby face, yeah, but it's not even so much then. Like, it's more so at my merch table or after the show, those girls that come up to me and talk to me, it's so special. And like I said, like, representation is so important, and I'm proud to carry that. That's why now, this time around in my career, I'm kind of switching it up a little bit. I'm not as raunchy, and you know what I mean? I don't even do certain moves anymore because, I strongly feel that for young girls of color, we need more examples that are positive, not just, not that there's anything wrong with Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, but we need more, relatable and kind of just, family friendly, and people to look up to that, can kind of be that positive influence, because I like feel for us, like, you turn on TV, we have like Love and Hip Hop, and we have like all this stuff, and it's like, wear something that's, going to give you content that's not like full of drama or setting us back, or does that make sense? You know what I mean?
It makes sense, and it calls out a really interesting point. To my understanding, the WWE, the big boys in the game today, are using the Cardi B song Up as the SummerSlam song. So what type of message is that sending to the young girls that maybe are really into Rhea Ripley as a wrestler, as a worker, really into Charlotte Flair, but then you have a personality like Cardi B? And let me tell you, I love Cardi B, but there are no punches pulled with the content of what she is talking about.
Yeah.
And it ain't wholesome.
Because what's going to happen is the kids are going to want to see, like, oh, what else does she have in her
Oh.
audio library?
Or in just waiting for SummerSlam and anticipating it so much, they're like, I want to hear that song again. I want to hear that song.
It's going to get beat to death.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
The Kids Bop version isn't out yet, so.
Ooh, there better be a Kids Bop version. But how could they make a Kids Bop version?
They will. They do it. They do it all the time.
They've done it to WAP.
So you are not just a role model, though, in the ring. Like, you touched on it just ever so briefly at the beginning about the other things that you're doing. So, I know that you're in the service, but also you've got a skincare line, right?
Ashley Renee Beauty Company.
Yeah, and so
right.
that's another thing to touch on, that representation thing. Making products for other girls and women that they can believe in and are good for their skin and make you feel good. Like, this is like a whole package.
Yeah, and being an esthetician as well, I know what works for melanated skin. I know what works for hyperpigmentation, ingrown hairs, things that are common in our community, and just to even be that vessel to say, hey, this is how we need to take care of our skin. These are products that are going to target these things. So we can, have that melanin pop in and look good.
That's right.
And this is a big thing that, the accessibility of, beauty products for people of color. You can walk into any drugstore in this area and they are often behind locked doors. And, what does that say to, the young person of color walking in there to get their supplies? Like, oh, I have to ask someone to
you know what it says.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. But like the fact that you have something you can like bring to people.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And say, you don't have to feel like you're a criminal asking for these supplies.
Yeah, so that's AshleyReneeBeauty.com.
Ashley Renee?
Ashley Renee. So it's my sister's middle name and my middle name. Me and my sister run the company together.
That's great.
Nice.
So yeah, but it's our baby.
That's wonderful. I think that's really good. Next time you see Mickey James, you should talk to her too, because I had talked to her years ago about like creating like some holistic, like just women's beauty products and things like that. Like just taking care of the whole self, not just parts of yourself.
It's mind, body, and soul, and that's another thing. Like that's why we focus on luxury skincare at affordable prices. You know what I mean? Like we use grapeseed oils and all types of holistic ingredients, agave. We use fresh ground coffee for every scrub.
Coffee's so good on your face.
Yes.
Oh my God, a nice coffee salt scrub.
Yeah, so we use all that stuff for you to soak in and everything, and it's just it's amazing, and I'm very proud of myself for even pushing myself out of my comfort zone to do that.
Good.
And I love my sister 'cause she makes all these products like by hand. Everything's handmade with love. Everything's shipped with love. And so, yeah, and like I said, just it also pushed me as an esthetician to, you know, really study more of our skin and, you know, what makes it tick. So, yeah, it's something I'm really proud of.
Yeah, you know, women's beauty products, like as a whole, have been bad for us. Like, if you
Yes.
ever read like the list of ingredients,
Because there are so many parabens and sulfates and
yes.
things that have no business being on a human body.
right?
Like bar soap has so much lye.
It's
I can go on for
awful.
days. This has nothing to do with wrestling.
It's awful. I get you. I make my own soap. I make my own lotions. Like, no, I completely get it. Like,
Oh,
the
maybe
stuff
we
that
should collab.
is marketed,
Yeah.
you know, is like bad for us. So
Yeah.
to have the forethought to say, hey, I want to make something for other people that's not bad for me, you know, is
Yeah.
it's like radical thinking almost. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because we've been conditioned that we buy what's on the shelf, but like
Mhm.
it's not good for us
Yeah,
necessarily.
no, it makes it worse.
It does. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Well,
I'm sorry. We didn't mean to like
no, it's
monopolize
okay.
the
A
No,
connection
good.
is made.
I mean, I use that stuff for my own face. That's how this got like this. So I may have talked about
That is the
it.
second
Oh,
time
bring
you've
me some
complimented
samples.
yourself in this one segment. I
Oh,
want to
come
just
on.
let you know that
Sorry,
right now.
sorry. I'm a personality. That's what I do.
So am I, but you don't hear me toot my own horn over here about, oh, my beautiful skin. Now, like, this guy's like 2 times the
We're
fun.
all glowing because it's a little muggy in here. but
Indeed, we are.
we are going to take a break. When we come back, we've got a couple of fan questions, and we'll go over a couple of our roundup
Yeah, some fun
topics.
stuff.
And yeah,
Sweet.
so we'll be right back.
Show your support for the MCW Cast while sporting some great gear by going to teespring.com/stores/MCWcast. You can pick up a full line of official MCW Cast merchandise, from coffee mugs and face coverings to t-shirts and sweatshirts. Visit teespring.com/stores/MCWcast. Fuel the MCW Cast by visiting buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. And for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee. Or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and get several additional perks. That's buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast.
All right, we're back here in the studio, MCW Cast. Amber Rodriguez is our guest, former MCW Women's Champion, and I think at this point we got to kind of do a little powwow here and wrap it on up, talk about big show coming up, July 24th. Amber, will you be in the building for that? Are you going to stop on by and join us? Maybe.
Unfortunately, I'm going to be in Louisiana. Yeah, I know. But we have our, what was it? Our chairperson here.
That's right. The championship committee. Yeah,
So
chairperson of the championship
That's the
committee.
person to talk to about me coming back officially.
We have had fans ask for you to come back. So we've definitely gotten early on in our podcast history, we got fans asking, where's Amber? Is she coming back? You know?
Oh, absolutely. It
And
says Ask
yeah.
MCW Cast. We don't really plug that as much anymore, but, you know, down on the lower third, as you will, it says hashtag Ask MCW Cast. And
Yep.
some of the first responses were, when you're going to have Black Wall Street on as a together.
Yes.
They wanted all of you in the
I don't
studio.
think we have enough mics.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
We need a bigger space. Actually, we need to book that for like a cool weather month.
I agree, yeah.
Can it be February?
Why?
Black Wall Street.
Oh, I
Black
get it.
Wall
Did I just say that
Street.
we don't have to. That
We just had a whole
we had
segment
a
about
whole
this.
segment about.
I'm
We did.
disappointed.
It's okay.
I'm disappointed.
There's a lot going
I
on
would
right
like
now.
to see us not have history months. I'd like to see us move away from that. But anyway, so we do have some of our fans that had sent in some questions for you.
Okay.
One, they wanted to know what who has been your toughest opponent? Sorry, I'm going out of order. Who has been your toughest
Toughest-
opponent?
I wish I had more context. Toughest meaning toughest to deal with, or toughest meaning
what?
like.
Toughest in any? I guess you can answer that in any way you like.
I'll keep it clean. I'll say toughest, like just a badass. Can I say ass?
Yeah.
Okay. The answer to that is gonna be Mickey, and Nyla. Nyla too. She, and that's the thing. Like she's easy to work with, but she's a tough girl.
Mhm.
Like, you know, and then taking the punches she takes, and you know, I'm just so proud of her. That's another one I can go on and on about.
One, when you're close with someone, you don't want to let them down too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's that mutual
Yeah.
love and respect between the two of you.
Well, what a lot of people don't know, I actually lived with Nyla
Oh,
for
okay.
I think it was about 2 to 3 years or something
Okay.
like that. So like we got really close because we were literally living together, training together, wrestling each other. And it's funny because up until that first match that I had with Mickey, I had worked Nyla for like, I want to say like 6 months straight.
I know that
So
feeling.
working a smaller body, it's like I could pick you up. Like,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, Nyla's tough.
Okay. If you could have a dream match with anyone, like living or dead, who
Jazz.
would it be? Okay. You knew
Damn.
exactly
Jazz.
who you were going to
Oh,
say
wow.
there.
Yeah. I know she's on her like retirement tour.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you need
Nobody
to get
ever
in on
really
this right
retires.
now.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah,
I,
but now strike while the iron is hot.
Right.
yeah,
Because she might just actually retire. Exactly.
yeah. Well, I have her number, and
All right.
Good. Well, let's see.
Championship committee, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
I'm
Little
taking
work.
some
Get
notes,
Phil
I'm
Stamper on the
taking
horn.
notes. All right. Okay. What have you been given any advice from some of the veterans in the business?
given.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've been given
And like,
tons
what's
of
the
advice.
best
Good.
advice you've gotten?
Ooh, the best bad advice. Or the best- because there's
Well,
that
It's a little bit of both.
Well, actually, that's a good point
Yeah.
because like
Oh yeah.
there's tons of bad advice out there being given. Like you know,
Oh, I've been told to put my elbows down when I bump.
oh, ouch!
Oh.
Why?
Yeah.
Oh God!
Someone wanted to hurt you.
Yeah. The best advice. I'd say it's from Nyla as far as like when I first even, played with the idea of coming back, she was like, do it and do it on your terms this time, and, just stay true to yourself. She didn't say it exactly like that, but, in so many words, that's what she was saying. And, I hold that in my heart every time I go out there. This is going to be on my terms this time. I'm not going to, roll over for anybody or compromise my integrity or, like bend at the will because it's something they want to do. You know what I mean? And if that makes me hard to work with, then it is what it is.
That sounds like very sage advice.
Indeed.
Shout out to Nyla though. Shout out
Yes.
to Nyla. What up?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
name
I
drop
mean,
Nyla
the few
Rose.
times that
Yeah.
we've had her in here, and I know she's worked a couple birthday parties and stuff. She was a delight. Like, really easy to work with.
Well,
just, that's great.
I
That's-
actually just realized going back into history that when I did see you come up for that Valkyrie show, that was the first time that I ever met Nyla. That show was the first people that I ever knew to use Nyla was Chris Levin and the Valkyrie. Were you guys living together back then, 2014? Okay, wow.
Mhm.
Wow. This is,
yeah.
I stay out of other people's affairs.
so-
Regardless of what people like to
okay.
say about me,
It's funny. It's a funny story. So this is how I ended up living with her. So I was staying with my parents, right? And I had a date with this guy, and I was like, I hit up Nyla. I was like, hey, I told this guy I have my own place, and can I like borrow your house? And you'd expect somebody to be like, oh, what? No, she was like quiet for a while. I was like, what does that know? She's like, no, I'm trying to figure out how I can make it look like you live here. And so I had stayed over that day, and I never left. I never
Wow.
went back home.
Oh my gosh!
What a-
Wow. Okay. So
Wild.
you didn't actually lie then to the
Yeah.
guy.
No.
All right. That's good. That's
I was
important.
foreshadowing.
Hey.
Right. Projecting. Okay.
Interesting.
That is a funny story.
Yeah.
So do you have words of wisdom for young girls wanting to get into the business? What would you tell them?
Don't compromise your integrity.
Mhm.
Don't do anything that will make you uncomfortable. If someone makes you uncomfortable, say something. If they don't believe you, say something to somebody else and keep talking until something
Mhm.
gets done.
That
I
very
love it. I love it.
very good
Yeah,
advice.
absolutely
Yeah.
love
If
it.
somebody asks you to come to their apartment and wrestle, don't go. Okay. Don't.
What if it's a
Customs
custom?
are not.
Oh,
They're not. Well,
What if it's a? I mean, some,
Customs get a bad rep. There are a few
do.
good
That's what I'm
ones.
saying.
out there.
I've been a customer
I
too.
know, I know, but somebody just breaking into the business should probably
Yeah.
steer clear of that
Yeah.
until they've gotten a good sense of how to handle themselves. And then I have one more question, and it was actually posed by the MCW Women's Champion Gia Scott.
Uh-oh.
We had her on the air. Gosh, what was it, like week 4 or
my
something?
gosh,
It was
it's been
pretty
like
early
3
on.
or 4.
Yeah.
And she went on record to say that she would like to face you in the ring
I'd love to
for
face
that
her.
MCW Women's Championship.
It's same here, same energy.
Okay.
up?
All right. Well, I'm making notes. I got.
I'm tweeting Phil right now.
Two queens
Yeah.
in the ring. I want
What
that.
about a triple threat match? Jazz, Gia, and Amber.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying.
I like the sound of that, but I also would like to see the one-on.
Just the
Okay.
one
I
on
would like
one.
to see the
Okay.
one-on.
Same
you know?
here.
All right.
But honestly, I'd like to see a one-on between Gia and Jazz as well.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
You know,
that'd
I-
be like a
amazing too.
I
triple-
understand, but you're
I
trying
don't
to,
know
you're
how many
being a
times
booker,
we could
you
bring
know,
Jazz
yeah.
in, so
Yeah,
I was trying
kill
to
two
like
birds in one stone.
maximize
Yeah.
the mileage, you know
I
what I mean?
understand
Yeah.
that.
I mean, if this is her retirement,
Maybe if
tour-
it's even a night 1, night 2 situation.
Ooh.
Hey, I work here and I buy a ticket for that. so,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, if you too want to ask our future guests questions such as this, remember you've got to become a Coffee Club supporting member. It's $5 a month. This is a great way that you can show your love and support for the MCW product, but also how you can have inside access to talk to all of our guests. So thank you to the supporters who sent in their Ask MCW questions. We really appreciate that. So.
I have a question. Oops, I'm bumping my microphone here. Who am I, Deacon Storm?
Whoa.
You thought I missed that earlier.
I know, yeah, I know. I
saw
was
it.
hoping nobody saw it.
You cursed me is what you did to follow in your footsteps of
That's
folly.
why it's so hot in here.
Ah.
Yeah.
Heat.
Amber, can I ask you, and I do ask this a lot of guests, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I like the sauce.
I'm scared.
Have you ever encountered a woman that you were wrestling that you felt was like taking liberties with you, like kind of like
What do you mean?
maybe like you laying it in a little harder?
A little more slug.
I guess what I'm trying to say is trying you. Have you ever been in the ring with a woman who tried you and you had to like basically be like, look, I can work too. and
Yeah.
if you want to work or you want to fight.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've had a lot of girls run their mouths, make certain threats, you know, if I get in a ring with you, blah, 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 but it never goes anywhere, you know, over nothing. And that's another thing about like when I was wrestling the first time around, and then now it's like the girls are less catty. I won't say they're not catty, but they're like a lot of them are less catty than before, because it's like everyone just, you know, wanted to secure their spot, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, and just was
Yeah.
scared of
Yeah.
someone coming in and taking their spot, a new fresh face, a prettier girl, you know, bigger chest or whatever coming in,
Right.
and you know, and it, you know, the claws would come out. And being younger and going into a locker room with a bunch of grown ass women, you know, of course I got tried, I got tested, you know what I mean? I'm not going to name names because it's just not worth it. I'm not giving them the publicity, but you know, I have been through that, and I mean, I held my own, you know what I mean? And hey, we can go outside of this building if you want to. I mean,
There's an alley back there.
You wanna take it there.
That's a good point though, that you brought up, that like the claws come out. You know, unless you're working specifically a girls show, a women's show, there's only going to be, I mean, traditionally one women's match, you know, and for years and years that was like the bring down match, you know, in between the semi-main and the main. So now we're in a time and place where, you know,
There's
we
room
already
for
talked about it,
everybody.
right? Women can main event.
There's room for
There
everybody.
can be more than one women's match. Like we don't have to adhere to that anymore. So like I get that whole the claws come out because
yeah,
there can only be one of us here.
right,
you know?
Yeah.
right.
Because that's how it was for so long, you know, unless you're working these women's shows, which as we talked about, there are more and more of them. So that's great. So maybe that's giving away, you know, that women don't have to be so catty.
But then I always said, even at that time, you know, if you're so insecure about this spot, it probably was never your spot to begin with.
That's very good.
If it's
advice.
so fragile, you know what I mean?
There's,
And then
fragile ones.
now I'm more interested in giving back, like, you know, like you brought up Gia Scott, like I see so much of myself in her.
Mhm.
So I would love to share a ring with her, just pass on what has been passed to me.
Mhm.
You know,
yeah,
like
she started very young as well.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So now I'm just at a point in my career where, God, I sound so old, where I just want to give that back.
No, that's, you know, it's with age comes wisdom, right? You know, and certainly the you that you are now is not the you that you were when you were 15, 16 years old, just getting into
Yeah.
the business, you know. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, and with age also comes the wisdom and the mentorship. And if you were brought up the right way,
Mhm.
then you know it's each one to teach one.
Exactly.
So, you know,
Or even brought up the wrong way. I mean, there are people who learn in reverse. You know what I mean?
true
Or
indeed.
who were
Yeah.
taught in
Yeah.
reverse. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, this is what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely a thing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just experienced kind of a mentor moment where I was teaching someone what not to do, but I did it in a very wrong way. And got a chance to make that right wrong this past, last weekend, actually. 2 weekends ago. I can't even. When
They blur
I was
together.
in
I know.
Indianapolis for ICW No Holds Barred.
Mm-hmm.
So just want to shout out that moment, kind of a milestone for me. Watching on IWTV, it was Paradigm Pro Wrestling's Midnight Marauders. And what I'm speaking in regards to is a young, of color ring announcer, goes by the name of Jay Rose. Back last summer when Leo was doing his final match,
Mm-hmm.
Jay Rose did the introduction for him at GCW, and he really kind of butchered it. And it was all right, you know. No one's really watching the match for the intros,
Right.
but in this particular instance, the match was the final match, which went with the album that Leo was releasing. So I had a heart to heart with him that day, and I said, "Hey, what happened in that? When you did the intros there?" And he said, "Oh yeah." He kind of like brushed me off, very Owen Hart, Mark Henry-ish, you know, like I'm too busy to really talk to you about this, whatever.
Right.
And I was like, "Yeah,
Or
well."
maybe he was embarrassed and just didn't want to, you know what I mean?
Could have been a little bit of that as well. I
Yeah.
think it was like, you know, he still had part of the show to do.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, after we had our heart to heart, go on Twitter on Monday, and he's like totally just tooting his own horn about how great the introduction was he did.
Oh,
for
never
Leo
mind.
Rush's
Oh,
final.
boy. Should have seen that one coming.
Never mind.
Yeah, I'm thinking to myself, wow, I talked to him like about how sometimes you can get jammed up and just don't let it happen again and just remember this and move on from it. Here he is like, guys, wasn't it great when I did Leo's intro? So
Wow.
That's annoying.
Well,
And then, like you said, like, you know, when you were like, oh, no one watches wrestling for the announcement. But honestly, as a worker, it hypes me up. Like,
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh,
Amber,
definitely.
Amber, as a matter of fact, Leo asked me before he went to do what he thought was going to be his final match at the time. He was like, "Can you ask the promoter to let you announce me?" Just
Yeah.
because for me coming back,
Mm-hmm.
I want it done right. And I'm like, you know what, man? I'm not here to work. Let the kid who's out there doing it do it. And subsequently, he, you know, tweeted the Monday after about how great it was. So I flamed him to the ground on Twitter, like just like brought everything crushing down on top of him. And so many people jumped on me about being a bully.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're how many years in the business? This kid is, you
But
know,
you
I mean, that's
tried to do
easy.
it privately.
Well,
though.
they
didn't
You
know that,
tried
but
to
they-
talk to
and
they
them.
don't know
that
the
was-
full story.
that's
It's
true.
easy to do when you don't know the full
Yeah.
story.
and that's the thing about it. No one knew the full story besides me and J Rose. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
went out to Indianapolis, Paradigm Pro Wrestling. J Rose is the MC, and a bucket list thing for me to do is announce all the deathmatch legends before they're no longer with us. So Madman Pondo,
Mm-hmm.
Midwest deathmatch legend. Before deathmatch was even a thing in the country, he was doing it. He was wrestling on Paradigm Pro. I asked the promoter, "Hey, do you mind if since I'm doing the show right before yours, 8 to midnight, I do the Pondo intro? It's deathmatch wrestling. I'm known for that."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Yeah, that wouldn't be a problem." And I was like, "Hey, and if Jordan, J Rose, is the one that you normally use, can we maybe have an interaction where he brings me out?" And I was able to kind of right that wrong just by letting him know that I admire everything that you do
Yeah.
for the ring announcer that you are and the ring announcer you're becoming. And I hope that you go on to even greater heights right now than you could ever imagine.
And that's
you know?
big
Aw,
of you.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
being the bigger person. I've definitely, going back to your question earlier, like I've definitely worked girls where it's like, oh, I'm never sharing a ring with her again. But, you know,
Yes.
it's always like, I wish you the best. Stay over there. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Absolutely,
I know exactly
yeah.
what you mean.
So yeah, I wanted to shout that out. Had a good time in Indianapolis. Met hustler Rip Rogers, who was just kind of sauntering around in the back. Any of you old school fans know hustler Rip Rogers? He was around the Indiana area and came to check out the deathmatch show. So met him. Got to announce Pondo. Made things right almost a year later, a complete year. This
Okay.
happened last July with J Rose, and yeah, those were my travels. Not too long ago that I wanted to bring up right here on the MCW Cast and tie it right into the growing pains that
Yes.
we all
Yeah.
experience.
Yep.
in this
Healing is
industry.
important.
And that's another thing from me then to me now. Like, there's so many situations where I get tested and I'm like, man, the old me would have cussed you out or would have told you meet me outside this building or like whatever, and me now, like I'm able to walk away from a lot of it, like even in locker rooms, like I don't even get into all the, so and so said this, like I'm good.
I'm not here for that.
It's astounding to me
I'm
that
good.
there are people who have been in this business for years and years, and that's still how they operate. So I will never quite understand that either.
Well,
Yeah.
Tara, I mean, just like when we were talking about the ring announcers with Al and
Right.
kind of like Danny, we're in the game of competition. So even though it's kind of like, yeah, this is just a show, you still got those guys that are like, I'm still gonna have the best body on the entire locker room.
Definitely.
I want to walk around with my shirt off to show it. So
Right.
that sometimes bleeds into other parts of the deal, and that's just the way that it is.
I mean, it is a competitive business, and it's a business where you're judged on everything from the size.
Whose hand did you shake?
The size that
Oh,
you,
yeah.
the
Right.
size clothes that you wear,
or where
know,
someone's been, and that's
Right.
and I've
Yeah.
actually
who
encountered,
you dated, who you-
yeah,
I mean, just lots of different things. You're judged constantly, how you look. and
Yeah.
Yeah.
some people age better than others. I mean, like,
but
it's,
you gotta
there's so
hold
much.
your own, and that's something
Yeah.
I realized recently. You have to hold your own. You have to be confident in yourself, because this is a cutthroat dog business. Nobody cares about you. Like, you're lucky if you come out with one friend, but if you hold your own, you walk in to that building knowing I belong here. I'm gonna do what I have to do. You just kind of have that star mentality, like not necessarily cocky, but just that star mentality. You know what I mean? And you have to do. You maintain that and balance it out with a little humbleness, you'll be fine. Because, and that's another thing, like, I've encountered someone recently, well, I've been to AEW, I've done da. Well, girl, none of us are signed right now. That's why we're here.
Okay.
Right.
So this is what we're going to do.
Right.
So
Well
you just
said.
have to have that. And that's, like, right now, I'm just on my grown woman-ish, and I'm loving it.
I love that energy. I love
That's
that energy
good.
so much.
All right.
I
Me
love it.
too.
All right. Well, speaking of loving energy, I just want to plug our upcoming show. We are 1 week away,
Oh,
and
that's right.
cannot wait. July 24th. If you haven't got tickets yet, I don't know what you're waiting for, but if you haven't gotten them yet, you can get them at mcwprowrestling.com or go to our local ticket outlet at Hideaway Collectibles. Again, they just had their grand opening 2 weeks ago, earlier in July, and it is the destination in the area. You will not find more Funkos or collectibles. If you're into collecting the pay-per-view chairs,
right on.
they've got a large selection of those. I think they've got like 1,500 pops or something in there. So if you're looking for something, they can get it, and you can pick up your tickets. So Hideaway Collectibles, Holabird Avenue, right down the street from Jimmy's Famous Seafood. So stop there, grab a Bruiser Burger, go grab your toys, and, I say that jestingly.
Figures.
I say that
Figures.
jestingly. I know, but
They are not toys. They are collectibles to be mounted and displayed.
they are. I know. I have a son who's got serious regret at unboxing all of his stuff that he's collected over
well,
the
that's
years
what they're
because
intended to be. That's what they're intended to be.
he has played with them, and now he's like, well, I don't want, we've got bins of them. He's like, well, I don't want those. I want the ones in boxes. So now, like, when he finds one that he likes, like, he's been trying to get all the AEW collectibles, and it's like we have to buy two, so the one to play with and then the one to stick on the wall. So,
Wow.
yeah, well, he likes to save them, so he likes to ask, hey, who do you think you're bringing in this year? So, I mentioned this last week. Pay attention to the list of recently released superstars. Those non-competes are expiring soon, and you just never know who we're going to bring. So you should go to Hideaway, stock up on your collectibles, and then bring them here to get them autographed.
It
What
sounds
a
like
plug.
That is
Nyla.
sage
What
advice
a
right there.
plug.
That's sage
Yeah,
advice
I'm
right
impressed by that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that it sounds like Nyla, she loves her collectibles.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Nyla Rose, you listening? Come on now,
Yeah.
girl.
All right. Well, this has been a great episode. Amber, I'm so glad that you took time from your visit to hang out with us here in the studio, and I'll talk to the championship committee.
Well, thank y'all for having me.
Yeah, with that said, Deacon, you want to close us out?
Sure. I'll
Oh,
close-
wait. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @1AmberRodriguez. I'm on Facebook at Amber Rodriguez. Shop AshleyReneeBeauty.com and get your skin right. Also, you can follow our Twitter and Instagram at AshleyReneeBeauty LLC.
Well then.
The business. The business.
Perfect.
The
All right.
business.
A true professional. Well, thank you.
Well, for Larry Legend, the wonderful Larry Legend, the always beautiful Tara, and thank you once again, Amber, for being here. I am Deacon Storm, and thank you for joining us on this episode of the MCW Cast. We'll see you next time at Resurrection.